All right, let's talk for a minute. So it's been a couple weeks since I've posted anything, but I want to let you know that I've been hustling in the background. Sometimes it's just easier to do that than it is to keep posting and keep spending time on editing video and this, that, and the other. So let me update you. We got the cab in black epoxy primer all the way around. I can get around to the other side. And yeah, like I said, everything's going along smooth. You already saw that I had the bolts actually attached for the mirrors. That we actually did some nuts actually in the doors for them, so that it's not just drilled into the panel itself. I got the patch panel actually fixed up underneath here. Ended up having to weld quite a bit right in here on this fender. And as I did, it kept blowing through because there was rust behind it. But anyhow, long story short, I got all of that patched, got everything fixed, got everything sanded, and now basically I'm going to let this dry. Sorry, cobweb. I'm going to let this dry for a few days, sand it with probably 180, possibly with a DA. I don't know yet. I hadn't made my mind up, but sand it with 180, and then we will finally get to putting some filler on some of the dents that are in this cab. As far as the body goes, as far as the bed goes, let me take you in there and I'll show you that real quick. Doing some polyester filling spray on it. I've already blocked this whole side, put guide coat on it, blocked it, and pretty much everything has already been blocked out. So now it's just about ready to go into primer. I've still got a few spots here and there, as you can see, where the guide coat didn't completely sand off. So I'm going to end up putting some glazing compound in these places because they don't really take that much. And more than likely, you're not going to see them that big of an issue anyhow. But like I said, around these things, the pockets in any bed itself is notorious for being sloped into the pocket. I'm going to try and get as much of that out as I can, but it's not that big of a deal because it's just what it is, right? The tailgate, on the other hand, like I said, we ended up having to fill because we took that panel off. If you remember, there were 6 holes in this tailgate that we ended up having to fill. And so I've got a couple low spots in here where it actually ended up being just a little bit lower than what I expected. But overall, all in all, for the material and the time that we've got into this tailgate, it turned out pretty good. So got the bed liner coating coming for this. I've got a couple pieces that I got to put on over here for the 5th wheel. I got to end up mounting those. I'll keep you informed on that. So tonight we're going to end up working on this side of the bed. I'm going to go ahead and put guide coat on it and try and get it blocked out. And hopefully, fingers crossed, because we're coming up on Memorial Weekend, fingers crossed, I can get a coat of primer, actual primer on this bed, and hopefully I can get the majority of the cab sanded and get those problem areas filled and get the feather fill sprayed on it so that it can be drying, so that then I can block it in the upcoming week. And oh yeah, by the way, I just ordered some black paint for this thing, and it's called Void Black. And when I tell you this stuff is black, it is black, which is what the guy wanted. So we're going to see what we can do with that. Yeah, so let's get the guide coat on this other side, and y'all hang out, watch me sand. Not going to be a whole lot of talking tonight, but I can promise you, you're going to see a lot of things show up on this other side, because I had to fill quite a bit on that because there was a big gouge, a big dent if you go back and watch it from the beginning. And so like I said, there may be a lot more work that needs to be done on that side. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully I've done my due diligence and I blocked it out good enough before I sprayed this on and before I epoxied it again, so that it won't show through. But you never know, things can be tricky. I'm human. Anybody that tells you that they have the perfect scenario to get it perfectly straight every single time is probably lying to you, or they're, 70 years old and they've been doing it for 50 years. I hadn't. I'm not going to lie to you. I've got stuff in it. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but the comment that the customer made to me was he just wanted to be able to shave in it, so that's what I'm going to give him, and hopefully it turns out better than what he expected. And so far, I think it's going to. So let's see what we can get done. All right, so hopefully you guys can see there. Like I said, it's not going to be perfect. It's the way that I'm doing it. Not necessarily telling you it's the way you need to do it, but I can pretty much tell you from my experience that if you do it this way, you will find all of your highs, all of your lows. You'll find everything that you need to find whenever it comes to seeing what the panel is going to look like once you actually get it in full paint and clear. All I'm doing is just putting some black guide coat on it. And like I said, what this will do, for those of you that don't know, is this will allow you to sand. And what will happen is where the sandpaper makes contact with the guide coat, it will actually sand that guide coat off back down to this white filler level, primer level. And where there is a low place, it will still leave the guide coat remaining on it. Not everybody's used guide coat. I've went to Walmart and picked up a 97-cent can of flat black spray paint. Matter of fact, that's what I did the first 3 cars that I ever did with. That's what I painted them with, or that's what I guide coated them with. My own personal truck, I guide coated with the flat black spray paint. Pops always used powdered guide coat, which is what this is. It's basically just graphite, ground up graphite, and it will make a mess on you if you're not careful. But different people like different things, right? They make guide coat in black and they make it in white also. So if you want to put guide coat on black epoxy, or if you got a black primer, depending on what color you're spraying the piece or panel that you got, you can find guide coat for any of those. The concept of guide coat is to see where low places are, whether that be sand scratches from the paper. If you sanded it in 80 grit and now you're trying to go to 180 or 220, so that way you can eliminate those sand scratches so they won't show through in the final paint or the primer coat. Me currently, what I'm going to end up using tonight is I'm going to end up using 320 to sand this. Just so we're clear, I sanded it with, I believe, 180 or 220 before I think it was 180 before I sprayed this sprayable polyester filler on it. So that way it had enough tooth so that it would bite into it and allow it to adhere properly. Now basically this is going to be pretty close to my final sanding. I'm going to end up spraying primer over top of this polyester filler once I'm done sanding this guide coat and everything off and I get all my low places fixed. The primer, and then I will block it one more time with flat blocks, wet sand, and as long as I don't have any low places or waves or anything else, then I will be ready to spray my sealer, my base, and my clear. If I still have low places, I will address those, fill those, and or if they're not bad enough, I can spray another coat of primer on here, and those will fill in, and I'll just have to block it again. That's where you get into the show quality cars and trucks. They will prime it 3, 4, 5 times sometimes, and block it, hand block it 3, 4, 5, 6 times to get panels flat, and straight as they can be. We're not going quite that far. If I can just get the majority of it to look straight, to seam straight, and the customer's happy with it, I'm happy with it, right? So again, putting on guide coat to show the highs and the lows, to show the difference where sanding marks are within this filler that we already have, the primer that we already have here sprayed on, and trying to make sure that we get those out before we move into the base coat. Because if you have scratches in the primer or in the filler, they will show up in the base coat and they will look like canyons. I made that mistake one time before and learned my lesson on it. So now, even if it costs me a little bit more, I will guide coat, block, guide coat, block as many times as I feel or see that it's necessary to do so, just to ensure that I don't ever have to go through that hassle again. And like I said, if you're on a budget, go grab you a 97-cent can of flat black spray paint. Why do I use flat black? I use flat black because it dries a lot quicker than gloss black will. If you want gloss black, or you've got access to a lot of gloss black, by all means use it. But for me, I always preferred flat black just because it dries a lot quicker and I don't have to wait around on it. Only difference between putting paint as your guide coat versus the graphite that I'm using here is the paint will clog up the paper a little bit faster. Because I'm sanding with such a fine sandpaper 320 on this tonight, you're going to notice that I'm going to blow through sandpaper pretty quick. It's not because the guide coat's clogging it up, but it is because the sandable filler, primer, whatever you want to call it, the feather fill that's on this thing, will clog that paper up pretty rapidly. So I have to keep changing paper in order to keep from basically wearing myself out from sanding so much. So I'll shut up now and just let you guys watch. Like I said, just going to be putting this on all over the entire side of the bed, and then I'll go back and sand it, and you'll see what I'm talking about, where it picks up the highs and lows. And like I said, I'm real curious about this area right in here because there was a big gouge up in here, and I think it was dented in pretty bad on this side here. Pretty sure I managed to get most of that out. This will be the true test to see it or not, and you'll see it with me as I sand it. Yeah, so like I said, you see what I'm talking about. It can get rather gnarly on your hands. It's all right. Just use your air hose, blow everything off. You'll be fine. All right, so what I've got is I've got a semi-rigid. It is flexible, but it's not very flexible. Long block, and then for the hard to reach areas, a trusty paint stick that I've cut in half. I'll wrap the sandpaper around it and put pressure across this whole paint stick. Same with the block. I'm gonna put pressure across the whole entire thing to ensure that it makes contact. The longer the block that you have, the straighter the panel will be. There's a lot of controversy on this right now floating around, but basically, if you've got a longer block, if there's high and low places all throughout the panel, the longer the block will actually hit those higher places all the way down the panel. If you've got a short block, you have the potential that if your highs are in between or on either side of the short block that you're using, that you'll end up sanding in the groove, essentially the low place, and it'll mess you up. You'll still see the ripple whenever you actually paint it. So like I said, only reason why I'm going to use this small block paint stick is like where this area curves out, and some of this finer detail stuff where the body line is. Once I get everything sanded down the rest of the way, and then these big curves here on the end, I'll have to use this smaller block. And remember that everything I'm doing here tonight, everything that I've done this far on this truck, the average person can do. It's just going to take time for you to learn how to do it or figure out how much you want to spend on your project. All right, with just a couple passes, you see what I'm talking about, how this filler, primer, whatever you want to call it, the feather fill actually coats the paper. It's just because I'm using such a fine grit sandpaper is what it is. If you're using 180 or 220, it wouldn't be this bad. But as you can see, hopefully, to get you in here actually, as you can see right in here, just with those couple passes, I've already managed to see the feather fill behind it, underneath this where I coated it. And like I said, you can see like these areas here, it's actually kind of hard to see. These areas here anyhow are still showing low, and all of this is still, I have not hit it at all. So you can see the flat block is only hitting right in this area here. And so I'll continue to sand, and you'll see that these should go away. Like I said, I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on this block, but I am putting enough pressure so that it stays flat against the surface all the way, and it's not cupped like that. It's actually staying flat. So, like I said, I'm gonna keep sanding. Y'all keep watching. Blow the sandpaper off. Sometimes I use a Scotch-Brite to kind of knock some of the big debris off before I blow it, and that seems to help it. And like I said, I'll just keep sanding. All right, so just so you guys can see what I'm talking about, these places right here, hopefully you're able to see them. That's what I'm talking about whenever I'm saying that the guide coat will kind of clog up the paper along with this filler primer that I've got on here. But whenever you use black spray paint, this will be a lot worse. You end up peppering the whole paper, and that becomes a problem because now I'm not sanding in these areas on this paper anymore, because these are actually covering up the grit that's on the sandpaper. So that's what I mean whenever I say I'm probably going to be going through quite a bit of sandpaper. But like I said, using 320 on this, it's overkill. I know I should be going back with 220 at the max, but I want to go ahead and get this block down as smooth as I can, just so that I know for my peace of mind that the 80 grit sand scratches are completely removed, and even the 180 are completely removed from the previous steps. All right, so I know y'all can see this. This is a prime example of what I was talking about. You see how all of this on either side of this is white, and this actually has stayed. So even whenever you feel it with your hand, whenever you rub across it, you will feel it actually dip in ever so slightly there. It's not a drastic change, but it is indicating that I have a low place right in through here. And like I said, this whole side actually has just about been filled with filler a little bit, not a whole lot. I pulled most of the dent out, but I still had to apply some filler to it. And I also have another area here, but like I said, I'm not done sanding in this area, but I can come back with a little bit of glazing putty, finishing filler, if you will, and put over this and feather it out into this. It's already smooth and already where the sandpaper has already been cutting and touching, and that will allow this actual low place to be filled in. I'll end up doing that once I get this whole bedside finished, blocked, and then I can come back and scuff this right in here with 120 and put my glazing compound, my glazing filler back over this, and then block it out. And then I can come back and prime just this area if I want to. But remember, this whole entire bed is getting primed after I'm finished blocking with this. So that will allow me to have a substrate over top of this that then I can sand again to ensure that this is completely smooth, so that once it's sanded with guide coat, you should not be able to see this anymore. So now let's speed this thing up so that y'all don't have to sit around for ever how many hours it takes me to do this. All right, I finished sanding the passenger side of the bed, and I think I'm just about done for tonight, but I just wanted to show you. As you can see, like I said, I ended up sanding through in a couple different places, but all of this down about an inch below this curve here is going to be covered with Raptor liner. And so I'm not really too much concerned about that, even though I spent quite a bit of time making those straight. The place that was gouged in right here is pretty well taken care of. As you can see, I sanded through there. Not too bad. I got a few places here and there that still need to have some filler put in them, like this place right here that I missed. But I'll end up getting that. Everything around the wheel wells looks pretty decent. Everything on this side actually turned out pretty decent. I've got a little bit of filling to do right here. This whole corner was actually caved in and was filled over with filler originally. I ended up grinding all of that filler out, knocking that out the best that I could. So I still got just a little bit of filler work to do down there. But like I said, it's a work in progress, and everything will end up working out in the end, hopefully. Like I said, I need to get the cab sanded down with 120, maybe even 180, to see where my low places are in it so that I can fill it. Then I can either epoxy it again, or I can spray some of this polyester filler on it, sand it down, block sand it, and see what happens. Like I said, I've got a few places on this bed that I'm going to be filling with some glazing putty, which won't be much at all. And then I can block that flat, and then I will be able to prime it, block it, and see where we're at. If we're good whenever I block it, after I've primed it, then I'll may possibly shoot another coat of primer on it and then wet sand it to get it ready for base coat. And we're on the downhill slide on this thing, and I can't stress that enough, because we have been through a ride and a half on this truck. There has been about 3 times the amount of work that I quoted for that I've ended up having to do for this truck, but I am almost 95% positive. There's always that 5%. I'm never 100% positive, but I'm about 95% positive that the customer is going to be ecstatic with this. And I think they're going to be happy as long as the paint lays slick. Fingers crossed. I think we're running on the downhill stretch on this thing. It's coming up toward the end of May. I've got this thing promised back for the end of June, so that still gives me a few weeks to paint it, sand it and buff it if I need to, and get it dialed in, get all of the pieces put back together on it, get the windows back in, the back glass back in, bumpers put on, mirrors put on. There's a whole lot of little small odd and end stuff that's got to be put back on this truck that I had to pull off in order to get everything to where I could get to it and work on it with ease, as much ease as possible, while trying to repair those places in the rear quarters that I had to repair. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and I'm glad to see it ready to be put in primer, because I'm ready to get it in color so that I can see what it's actually going to look like. I'm going to still work on this the rest of the week. It's Thursday night currently. I've got Friday. I've got Memorial Day Monday that I'm going to be working on it. But I'm probably going to have this video uploaded before Memorial Day so that the customer has something to look at, because I've been trying to get him a video a week. It worked out that way for the first couple of weeks, but now it's kind of transitioned into every other week, because it comes down to I've got to get stuff done. I got to have time to do it. And when you only work a couple hours a night after you get off of your regular job, it's kind of hard to video, record, and upload, and take care of the family, and take care of the house. And it's a lot. So we're doing the best we can. Hope you guys have enjoyed it.